Okay, welcome everybody. We are just a couple seconds after 2 o'clock Eastern, so give it another couple seconds here. Before I get started, this is an information session for the 2024 CHBA National Awards for Excellence. So if you're not in the right spot, have a great day, but hopefully you are, and welcome to the show. All right, we are going to get started. So first we'll do a little bit of an overview about the awards. So this is Canada's premier awards nationally for new homes, renovations, community development, and residential marketing. We have 48 categories this year. For those of you who are returning, they are the exact same categories as last year. So there have been absolutely no changes to the categories that you need to worry about. If you're brand new to the awards, we're going to go through some of those categories today, a little bit of FAQ on them, some commonly asked questions, tips, things like that. We do get entries from pretty much every single province in the country. It aligns with how many members we have. So we do get a few fewer in the East Coast where we have fewer members, but that just makes sense. And in addition, the awards are judged by your peers. So it is an industry awards judged by industry. And we do have judges from all across the country, builders, renovators, developers, marketing professionals, and they apply to judge, and then they get all the anonymous categories, and they're the ones that pick the finalists and the winners. So it has nothing to do with the staff at CHBA National. So before I get too into it, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Natasha, and I'm CHBA's Director of Marketing and Communications. But more importantly, in this context, I have been running our awards program for 7 or 8 years or so. So I do know it pretty well. And with me, I've got Amy Hussick. She is monitoring, for the most part, the CHBA Housing Awards inbox. So you may see emails replied from both of us if you reach out to us there. This is Amy's second year with our award program, so she's definitely learning the ropes as well. So if you have any questions throughout your entry process, please feel free to reach out to either one of us. And I'm going to give you the best contact information to reach us at the end, but I'll just verbally say it here. It's housingawards@chba.ca. Someone is always monitoring that inbox, and we're happy to answer your questions on there. So before I get too much into things, I wanted to find out who you are so I can know where to focus the conversation today, because I do want this to be an interactive session. The idea is for you to be able to answer questions, answer as we go, throw them out there, whatever you want. I do have our question box open. It should be at the bottom of your screen there. So at any time, go ahead and pop in a question. I may not answer it right away, depending on if it's coming up ahead in a slide or two, but feel free to throw it out there so you don't forget. So let's start with the first poll that I'm going to put up here. And this is to get a feel for sort of how in-depth I need to go into our program, any changes that have happened, et cetera. So have you previously entered the national level of CHBA's Housing Awards? Yes, within the last 2 years. Yes, but it's been a while, or no. So I'll give you a few more seconds here for everybody to get a chance to enter. It's looking like most of you have never entered before, so great on you for entering or for joining us today, and hopefully you'll learn a bunch. So I'm going to put that up there, share the results really quickly, and there you go. All right, I'm going to go launch right into the second poll here, which is about what are you interested in today? How can we help you? What categories do you think you're going to be entering? New homes, renovations, Net Zero Home Awards, so those are new homes and renovations for Net Zero. Our community development categories, there's 2 of them, Best New Community and Best Growing Community. And then we have a bunch of residential marketing categories. So if you can take a second there, you can answer more than one if you plan on doing a few different categories. All right. I'll throw up the results there. So it looks like most of you are interested in new home awards, which includes the new home spaces, by the way, followed by residential marketing, few of you for renovations, and a couple for net zero and community development. So we're going to touch on everything today. Like I said, definitely jump in if you've got any questions on any of those sections that you'd like to know more about. All right. So when you're going to start your entry, the first thing that you have to figure out is whose name is on the award. So this, will hopefully help make it a little bit more clear for you. Every awards, either the local, provincial, or national, they're all run a little bit differently. They're all run independently. So it's really important to make sure that you know what's going on at the national level that you're considering entering. For our competition, the primary recipient of the awards is either a builder, renovator, or a developer. And if it's in a marketing category, it can sometimes be with the marketing company. So those are the primary recipients. And I'll get a little bit into the eligibility criteria after, but essentially that's who the award goes to. Well, how do we recognize other people? First, they can be recognized as a full partner. This is actually pretty rare. This would be a situation where you've got a builder and a developer who are basically co-entering because both of them played an equally important role in this project. So that would be an example of a partner. For marketing categories, a marketing company can also be entered as a partner. So in those instances, the award, if you were a finalist, for example, it would say, builder A and developer B for project blah, blah, blah. So that's a partner. If you think you're a partner and you're not a marketing company, definitely reach out to us if you're unsure of exactly how this should be entered. But for the most part, just remember those primary recipients, for the most part, are builders, renovators, and developers. Why? Because those are the primary people in our association. However, we know there's a lot of other people involved in building a house. And so that's where the contributors come in. So designers, architects, energy advisors, all of those people that are involved in building the house, it could be, your trades, it could be anybody that you want really, as long as they are a CHBA member. They can be listed as contributors. So a great example would be, I don't know, you've got your interior decorator and the home, like the pictures are all showing them, and you really want to give them some credit, and they're also a member, you could add them as a contributor here. Some people actually are the contributor, but they end up doing the work of the entry. So it's very nice of you. And it's great that you're getting the project out there. Just make sure that you have permission from that primary entrant. So for example, if you are an architect and you are a CHBA member and you really want to enter this project, you have to make sure that the builder gives the sign off saying, yep, we know you're entering, go for it. The builder is actually the one that's the primary recipient, and then the architect is the contributor. Both of your names will appear everywhere if you are a finalist or a winner. Okay, so you enter. How do you get recognized? If you're a finalist, we send a press release to all of our media contacts, as well as our general media database. We actually have access to a huge database starting a couple of weeks ago. So this year we're going to be doing even wider media blasts for finalists and for winners. So it gets quite a lot of local media take up in various areas across the country. We do a ton of social media. We do posts for every single category, for finalists and for winners, but we also use your projects throughout the year. And this goes even if you aren't a finalist or a winner, because we're always looking for great social media collateral for our social media channels for the public. And so we'll go in, and even if you weren't a finalist or winner, if you got a great looking project, we'll help share your project around. We always tag you and anybody else that you've listed as contributors in those social media posts. We have a huge award ceremony that happens in conjunction with CHBA's National Awards for Housing Excellence. So if you're a finalist, you'll be given the opportunity to buy tickets for that. This year it's going to be in St. John, New Brunswick in May. We also have trophies. These go out to the winners only, and they've got the primary recipient's name on them. We've got a magazine that goes out quarterly where we're often featuring award winners in there. We do blog posts that are aimed at the public. We have awards galleries online, and basically we put them everywhere we can all year long. So again, even if you're not a finalist or a winner, it's a great opportunity to get your project out there. We also will give you, if you're a finalist, a little a brochure on the ways to make the most of your accomplishment. Okay, so who can enter? Before you do any work of starting an entry, please make sure that you are eligible because we don't want you to spend a bunch of time putting together an entry only to find out that you're not actually eligible for the award. So the main entrant and anybody that's named on the entry has to be a member of CHBA. Now, if you're a member in a local or provincial association, you're automatically a member of CHBA, which is the national level of the association. We're all one big, happy three-level association family. So in addition to being a member, you have to be a member where the project was built or renovated or the community was built. So if you live in, or if you're building, excuse me, outside of Ottawa, I'll use Ottawa because I live here, so it's my example. If you have a community in Ottawa, you have to be members in the Greater Ottawa Home Builders Association. If you are a member, you're building somewhere and you're not a member there, but you're a member somewhere else, the builder, renovator, developer has to be a member in the location where the project is. If you are a marketing company and you're entering on behalf of your clients, please make sure that your clients, the builder, renovator, developer, is a member where the physical home or homes are located. You, as a marketing company, also must be a member. However, you don't have to be in the same location. Why? Because your work isn't as much tied to a physical location. So if you're representing a builder in Vancouver, they have to be a member in the in Haven in Vancouver, but maybe your office is actually based, I don't know, in Kelowna. So it's okay if you are not a member where the project is located, but you do have to be a member of the association. And the same goes for all of the contributors that you list. So if the cabinet company is a member, great. They don't have to be a member in the location, but the primary entrant does. So if you have any questions on that, please feel free to pop them in the chat or definitely reach out to us if you're not sure. It's better to figure that stuff out in advance before finding out later that you don't meet the eligibility requirements. All right, so if you're not sure of your membership status, first of all, that might be a little bit of a problem. Hopefully you do. But we do have a spot on your entry form where we'll ask you to enter your CHBA National Membership ID, and there'll be a little link on how to find that. Definitely, if you're looking for it and you don't see it there on our end, that means that there's going to be some sort of problem. It doesn't mean that you're not a member. It just means that our records are messed up a little bit somewhere and we've got to figure it out. That's the great type of thing to flag in advance so that once you submit your entry, everything goes in smooth sailing. So if you can't find your company in there under your HBA, just shoot us a quick email and we will get to the bottom of it as soon as we can. Okay. Eligibility period. You'll see some common dates here for all of them. We typically have around an 18-month eligibility period every year, depending on when our deadline falls. But essentially, it goes from April 1st of the year before until the deadline. So for new homes, new home spaces, renovations, and community development awards, the project must have been built. It's got to be completed and ready for occupancy sometime between April 1st of 2022 and our deadline, which is December 7th. Net zero awards, they have to have been labeled during that period. So sometimes the label takes a little bit longer for net zero awards. So if it was built, let's say in January of 2022, but the label didn't come in until afterwards, as long as the label came in that eligibility period, you're good to go. Marketing activities, for the marketing categories, marketing typically takes place a little bit in advance of the building, and we know that. And because they're marketing awards, the building does not need to have been built yet, but the marketing activities need to have taken place in that same time period, April 1st to December 7th, 2023. One of the little different ones is the mid to high rise building, which is, sorry, the name is actually building, mid to high rise building planned. And so these are for people that are sort of in the in the pre-build, but in the sales process. So the eligible buildings must have been ready or like available for rent, can be rent or for sale. So the structure doesn't need to be completed yet, but you do need to be in the sales period of development at that point. So if you have any questions about that eligibility period, definitely let us know. We do have a question come in about new home awards, and I'll be getting to that really quickly, so just hang tight. All right, as I mentioned, we've got 48 categories that can be entered. In addition, we do have 3 best overall categories. We've got the Design Excellence Award, which is for new homes and new home spaces, the Renovation Excellence Award, which is for renovations, and the Marketing Excellence Award, which is the marketing categories. So these are sort of that best overall. The way it works is if you're a finalist, you get a certain amount of points allocated depending on your standing, and then all those add up, and then the best overall ends up getting this award. So for the national awards, there's no need to create a separate entry for those big 3, we call them. It's basically an automatic process, and I'll talk a little bit more about how you will be eligible to get those big 3, but just know if you're looking for an entry form somewhere and you can't find it, that's why. It's because it's an automatic thing. We don't make you create a separate entry for it. All right, new home categories. So we have quite a few new home categories, but the purpose of them is to recognize the excellent architectural qualities of a new home. And then we break that down further into interior and exterior design, use of forms and materials, creative use of space, the functionality of the floor plan, and the overall appeal to your target market. So you'll see those are broken down into quite a few categories. We've got attached homes, which can be production or custom, detached production homes, detached custom homes, and entry-level home award. I will say for the target market, and this goes for those of you who are interested in community development, marketing, renovations, all the categories really. The reason we have that overall appeal to the target market is to give the judges some context on what they're judging for. So we train our judges that they're not actually looking for all about the flash. They're looking to see what your intent was for the home and how well you realized that intent. So for example, if you're building for entry-level buyers, probably not going to have as high-end finishes, and you might be a little bit worried that the home won't show as well. That's okay. What we tell our judges is look at that target market. Who are they actually trying to sell to, and how well did they meet that client's needs? So that section is actually really important and something that we explain a lot to our judges about how to approach that in the judging. All right, so this is getting to the question that came in about what is considered a mid-rise. So for attached homes, we have 5 different categories. We've got low-rise categories and then mid to high-rise buildings. So low-rise is defined for our competition as 3 stories and lower. Essentially, it's part 9 of the building code. If your home is part 9, then it goes into the low-rise category. There's a couple of variances that could happen, and I'll explain that in a little bit as we get deeper into it. And then mid to high rise is 4 stories and higher. So typically that is part 3. Because it's sort of, you've got shared communal spaces typically, or you'll have shared entrances, shared parking, that type of thing. The building is entered as a whole. So you would enter, for example, a picture of the exterior of the building, floor plan of a floor, and then you can focus on one unit in there to show an example of what the homes look like. But overall, you're kind of looking at that whole mid to high rise project, not just a single unit. The mid to high rise building is broken up into 2. There's the ones that are already completed, so those are the ready for occupancy. And then there's the planned ones. So those are the ones that need to be in that sort of sales, they need to be ready, like available for sale, but they don't have to be built yet. So just to note that that category in particular, the mid to high rise building planned, is not eligible for the Design Excellence Award. All of those awards need to be built. All right, hopefully that answered your question about a mid-rise. So for detached homes, you can see we've got 5 different categories. They're all broken up by square footage. How do we come up with our square footage delineations? It's essentially based on what we see in previous years. We want to make sure that all of our categories are fairly reflective of what is being built out there on the market, and then also give everybody kind of an equal shot at winning. So if we got a ton all in one of these 5 categories, the next year we might break up the square footage delineation. But for the most part, over the last few years, it's been pretty consistent numbers in every single category here. We also have detached custom homes. Again, there's 5 different categories there. And I'll get into a little bit about how do you determine if it's custom versus production soon. In addition, under the new home categories, we've got the entry-level home award. Again, even as much as we tell our judges that you're not judging based on flash, you're judging based on intent, there's definitely a perception when we know that in the industry that if you're truly building for entry-level customers, that you're not going to do well in these awards. So we've created a category just for entry-level home. It can be any square footage. Obviously, they typically tend to be a little bit on the small side, which is fine. But essentially, if you're building for that entry-level buyer, there's a price cutoff based on the region that you're building in. And we've got a chart and everything like that if you're interested in that category. I won't get too much into it here because I'm not sure how much you want anybody on this call is actually looking at entry-level homeware, but I highly recommend it. It's one of those things, there's a public perception that houses cost a lot and builders aren't doing anything to help make them more affordable. We know that's not true. But on our end, on the CHBA policy side, it's actually really good for us to be able to show these entry-level houses as well. So definitely recommend that you consider entering those ones. Okay, let's delve into the new home categories, some of the commonly asked questions that we get. So what counts as your square footage when you're determining which category you go into? It's any finished living area that's above grade. So this might be different from other competitions, so pay attention. So if you have a finished basement, but it's below grade, you wouldn't count the square footage, so it wouldn't be in that category, but that doesn't mean you can't talk about it. So you can submit photos of it, you're allowed to discuss it. It just does not count towards the square footage. And if your basement isn't finished and it's below grade, same deal. You probably won't be showing photos of an unfinished basement, but you could if you wanted to. So here we've got an illustration of how to handle those walkout basements. So we just talked that square footage does not count if it's below grade. Well, if the basement's above grade, what do you do with it? That's basically a walkout basement at this point. So you can see the 2 illustrations here. If you can walk out of the basement into a yard, so essentially your basement's not really acting like a basement. You get those nice full height windows, the big doors. You do have to count the full square footage for the entire basement. However, if you do have sort of a walkout basement, but it's really just an egress, as you can see in that bottom picture there, you don't have to count that in your square footage. All right, we do have a couple questions here. Okay, first question is, why no single room for new homes? Okay, so that's a great question. We could do so many categories, so many. But the bottom line, the honest answer to your question is we already have 51 awards to give out. And if we did every single possible combination of type of award, um, we could have 500. So at some point, you just kind of have to make a decision on where to do the cutoff. And so right now, we do not have single room for new homes. We did add best custom kitchen, best production kitchen, best bathroom, and I'm missing one for the new home awards a few years ago during COVID, actually, when everything was digital. So it was easier to squeeze a few in. But for now, we're sticking with those ones. And then the other question that came in was why no price breakdown for custom kitchens? So none of our custom categories have price breakdowns for the full homes, as you'll notice, and that's just because there's a huge difference in cost across Canada. difference in cost for labor, different cost for materials, land, all of those things. And so as a national competition, it would be impossible to compare a home in rural New Brunswick with a home in downtown Toronto, for example. And so all of our custom and production home categories are broken down by square footage, not by cost. Renovations is a little bit different, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So hopefully that answered your questions there. All right, what's a low-rise attached home? All right, so low-rise attached, they have to be ground oriented, which means that they have their own entrance that's accessible from the outside. So none of a walk into a foyer and then you pick, which direction you're going to your door. It's got an outside entrance. Again, it's Part 9. Now, we know sometimes there are some variations on that. So that could include Part 9 homes with Part 3 garages below, or it could be a 4-story home that has Part 9 variances. But essentially, if you are building to Part 9, this is the category that you would go in. So what do those housing forms look like? They look like, these are called different things depending on where you are in the country, but townhomes, row houses, duplexes, semi-detached condos, even stacked towns if they're 3 or below, potentially, depending on what, again, part of the building code you're building in. So that is a low-rise attached. Whereas a mid or high rise is essentially everything that is not. So it's not ground oriented. They're going to be sharing a common entrance for the most part. Again, sometimes you'll have that lower level that they actually have their own entrance, but the whole rest of the building has to go in through an elevator or something like that. That would still fall under mid to high rise. And then the cutoff is 4 stories or higher. So again, as I mentioned before, just note that those mid to high rise focuses on the entire project, like the whole building itself, whereas the low rise, I'll go back a second, these low rise detached, they actually focus on one. So let's say you're building townhomes and there's 4 of them next to each other and all connected. You do not enter that as the whole block of townhomes. You pick one. So you're entering one model essentially. On the outside image, we would suggest that you share an image that does show a lot of the block, if possible, but then also one exterior that zooms right in on the unit that you're focused on. And then all of the interior pictures and the floor plan and everything is focused on one unit. If you've got a row of townhomes and you have 2 floor plans that are wildly different from each other, you can absolutely enter both. They'd be entered as 2 separate entries. And as a reminder, you do get up to 3 entries per category per membership. All right, we have a question of roughly how many entries do you see in each of those categories? All right, that is top secret information. And I'm serious, actually. We never give that away because we don't want anybody to, first of all, potentially be discouraged, or secondly, feel like their award was in any way diminished if maybe there were fewer people in the category. So what I can say is that we typically see around 800 entries every year, and we have 50 categories. So you can do 48 categories. So you can kind of do the math on there. I'd say in general, it depends on the category, but we could see anywhere from 10 to 25 on an average per category would be sort of a good general average. We have another couple questions in here. What category would you enter for a home that was originally a bungalow that was completely renovated with a new second floor? So because it's a renovation, that one's easy. You just do the renovated category. If you're entering the whole home, you'd pick the whole home category, and then pick the square footage of the finished home, and that's the one that you would enter in. And we'll talk a little bit more about renovation categories later. How many entrants and finalists are there on average for new homes? Okay, so again, we just talked about entrants, but in terms of the finalists, we name 5 finalists in every category. Do custom spec duplexes and multiplexes go in low-rise attached? Okay, so attached homes can be custom or spec, doesn't matter. And then it depends on your multiplex. Like a duplex typically would be low-rise attached. A multi, I don't know how tall multis can actually get that you're building, but as long as they're Part 9, then they would go into low-rise attached, whether or not they are custom or production spec homes. All right, keep those questions coming, and I'm going to keep going. We already talked about mid to high rise. Okay, this is a question that we get asked quite often. How do I know whether the home is production or custom? I would say in 95% of cases, you know. So production homes are spec homes. They have floor plans that are not like proprietary for a single homeowner. They're meant to be repeated. You may have already built a lot of them, or you may not have built a lot of them yet, but you plan to. So those are production homes. Now, a lot of production or spec builders do give customers the option to customize aspects of the home. So they might be picking the finishes, or they might even pick the flooring, etc. They might even have minor adjustments that can be made to the floor plan. So, for example, you can pick, floor plan A or floor plan, A.2 that includes, a fourth bedroom upstairs. But the fact is, they're still floor plans that the customer is sort of picking out of the book, or that's already been built and that they're just, picking. So that would be a production home. So a custom home is really aimed at that truly one-of-a-kind home. You built it with a specific customer in mind, or even just a specific lot in mind. But it is meant to be like not repeated. This is a one-time deal. We're not doing this thing again. So if you're not sure, definitely shoot us an email, and hopefully we can help you figure it out. But the big tip that I usually give to people, oops, I accidentally advanced. The big tip that I usually give people is think like a judge. If you were looking at this entry, where would you think that it would go? And that does boil down sometime to which option is less controversial. Because if you've ever judged these awards before, you'll know that, judges don't like to be feeling like they're being fooled. So if something is coming across as completely custom and they've put it into the production award category and it's sort of on the line, I would err on the side of custom just so that you don't have any judges thinking that you're trying to pull the wool over their eyes. But again, definitely send us an email and we'll try and help you figure it out as best as we can as well, not having seen the home either. All right. Question about images, which is jumping ahead a little bit. I'll answer it now. The question is there a specific format you'd like the images labeled in? So the quick answer is no, and I will talk a little bit about the images a bit later on in the hints and tips stage. New question, will logos be available for promotion of award nominations before the actual awards get handed out? So I think I understand your question. We do give out finalist logos or badges, whatever you want to call it. So as soon as we announce finalists, we send out an email to finalists with a logo that says that they're a finalist with the category, or the broad category, and the year. We send them some marketing information, and we send them some assets and things like that so that they can get to promoting it right away. All right, so I mentioned before we've got new home spaces, and I couldn't remember the fourth one. Here it is, Best Primary Suite. So these are for new home awards. So you can enter into this category as well as the whole home category. So if you had a, I don't know, production home, it's 1,500 square feet, you can enter it into the appropriate category for the home as a whole. But then if you think, man, this kitchen is really something special, it stands out, I want to give it the due attention that it deserves, you can also enter that kitchen by itself into the best production kitchen category. So again, there are no square footage delineations or price delineations for any of these. We've just got the 4 categories as a start. Maybe one day we'll add more, I don't know. But just remember, these are for new home categories specifically. We did have a question come in via email earlier today, actually asking about additions for renovation. All additions, even if they're like, again, it's an addition, it's completely new, but it's not a new home. So don't enter in the new home spaces categories. They go into the renovation categories. And just as a note, as we talk about the Design Excellence Award, that big best overall for new homes, these are sort of like bonus categories. So any points that are scored in these new home spaces categories also get applied to the best overall Design Excellence Award. All right. So let's get into renovations. Now we had fewer of you interested in renovations than the new home, so I'll go through this fairly quickly, but definitely if you're one of those reno people, shoot all your questions at me in the chat here. So renovation awards, very similar goals in terms of what they're recognizing. Obviously it's renovations instead of new home construction, but again, you've got that overall appeal of the design, creative use of space, functionality, and then when it comes to actually the actual renovation part, we've got that integration within the home while meeting the homeowner's requirements and addressing any challenges that pop up because we do know that renovations are often fraught with challenges. So you'll have space to talk about those as well. So we have several renovation categories. You can see we've got kitchen renovations. These are broken up by dollar value, and I'll get into that in a little bit on how to determine that dollar value. Then we've got a category for basements, bathrooms, exteriors. So exterior is it can be sort of the the curb appeal element, if you will, of the whole home. And it can be also sort of outdoor living space sort of exterior. So if you built an entire outdoor living room or renovated an outdoor space and it's kind of livable space outdoors as well, you can enter that into exterior. And there's more information on the website about how to think about that. And then best single room renovation, and that one's really to capture everything else that's not listed in those single rooms here. So it could be a library, it could be a gym, it could be a dining room, it could be a master bedroom, etc. And then we do have whole home renovation. So that would be looking at the house as a whole. So how do you know whether or not it qualifies for a whole home reno? Because often not the entire home is done. Essentially, it's got to involve more than one room. So if you're looking at a main floor reno where it's kitchen, dining room, living room, great room, that's enough to qualify for a whole home reno. And then obviously anything else you renovated, feel free to put some photos in there if you did a powder room, etc. It can also include exterior work of the house as well. You don't have to be changing the floor plan. You can keep the original floor plan or you can do reconfigurations of the floor plans. And then just to note that much like the new home awards and new home spaces, if you're entering a whole home renovation, you can also enter pieces of that home into the individual reno categories. So you can enter a whole home renovation at $350,000 and then also enter that bathroom into the bathroom category. So the Renovation Excellence Award, that's that best overall. In order to be eligible, because as I mentioned, they're automatic entry into those categories, you have to have won at least one renovation award. Well, you won't know that going into it. What do you know? You have to have entered into at least 3 categories. That doesn't mean 3 projects. If you had 3 projects into the same category, which is allowed, because remember you're allowed up to 3 per category, doesn't count. You got to show like a breadth of different projects. So you have to have entered into at least 3 different categories. And then the more points you get through those, as long as you've won at least one, that makes you eligible for the Renovation Excellence Award. All right. I'm just checking the chat really quickly here. We do have a question going back to new homes. I noticed in the Q&A that renderings are only acceptable for the best renderings and mid to high rise. Yes, that's true. What about a net zero project that was labeled within the timelines, but not scheduled to be completed until 2024? That is a good question that I will bring back to my net zero colleagues because I was under the impression that you could not get a label for your home until the blower door test was done, which makes me think it must be pretty much ready for occupancy. Feel free to write some more details in the chat that I won't share here, but if you actually want to reach out to us at housingawards@chba.ca, we'll pass that over to our net zero team. They can look up your label and we can chat with you and see what's going on there. All right, skip a slide. So what's included in the renovation cost? Basically, this is public, right? The category is public, so we don't want customers, your potential customers, to be misled by how much things actually cost. So essentially, it's supposed to be everything for the renovation. So that would be any structural work, your time for trades, your materials, all that type of stuff. And even if the customer's self-supplied appliances, estimate the dollar value of them. I can't tell you the number of times that we've seen a kitchen renovation entered into like the under 70,000 category, and the appliance package alone, the judges go, "Oh my God, that's like a $50,000 appliance package that's all wolf range and all the rest of it. There's no way they did this renovation for under 70." So make sure that appliances, even if the customer supplied them, gets put into that, because what we don't want is a Canadian homeowner somewhere looking at this under $70,000 kitchen and thinking, I can get that for under 70,000, when really it was like, 175 or something. So if you have any questions on that, let us know. And those prices are before tax. Why? Because taxes are different across the country. All right, couple quick questions on here. Can I enter previously unfinished basement? Yes, into the basement reno category. And I already talked about what can be entered into the exterior renovation category. All right, a couple of you are interested in community awards. So we do have two different ones, and they look at recognizing excellence in the performance by a developer and home builder members. So that would be a situation where maybe you have two as project partners who create attractive, exciting, innovative, and environmentally responsible communities. So we've got two different awards: a best new community. So if you are a developer and you've got a community, or if you're a marketing agency representing your developer and you're entering on their behalf, if you've never entered this community before, put it in the best new community. If you have entered it before, maybe it was 5 years ago, 3 phases ago, you built so much since then it goes into the best growing community. So just keep in mind that if you entered last year into the best new community and you don't have a lot different for this year, you might want to wait a little bit longer, because our judges are instructed to look at what is new from the last time it was entered. And if you only have a couple blocks built and no additional amenities or anything like that, that's not a lot for them to judge off of. So hopefully that answers that question. By the way, best new community, even if it's pretty much complete and it was completed, I don't know, 3 years ago, as long as you've never entered before, you can enter it into best new community. All right, net zero home awards. So for the few of you that were interested in these ones, I mentioned already that labeling period. So the big thing to note for the net zero home awards is all of you already have a label on your home, which means that you've all met the technical requirements for net zero homes, which means you don't have to talk about them. I know you love them, but they're all kind of the same. And the judges are not going to be looking at those technical aspects or the energy efficiency, because they're assuming that you're all essentially pretty much equal. Instead, they're focusing on the exact same things as they do with the new home awards: that appealing aesthetic, overall interior exterior design, forms of materials, and floor plan. So keep that in mind. And you can enter both categories. So you could enter the net zero home award category as well as the corresponding new home award category, for example. If you're building a custom home or renovating, there's a category for that. And if you build production net zero homes, spec homes, there's a category for that. Keeping an eye on the questions here. If you guys are thinking of any, please feel free to drop them in. All right, marketing awards. A bunch of you are interested in the marketing awards. So these ones honor the best in marketing. So the elements we look at are attracting customer attention, generating traffic, and creating a confidence and environment favorable to home buying or renovating. We don't get a lot of marketers for renovating, but I'm sure they exist. So don't feel shy. If you do market for a renovator, you can definitely include your marketing activities in here. So we have a bunch of different categories. These have not changed much in the last couple of years. We did add a couple new video categories on there that they're broken up by how many seconds they are. And then with COVID, we ended up adding a best virtual tour experience category on there. So go ahead, take a peek. The Marketing Excellence Award is the best overall. So same as we got for new homes and for design or for the renovating homes. So in order to be automatically eligible, the company must have entered a minimum of 4 marketing categories and won at least one of them. So by company, what do I mean? Again, you're a marketing agency. Maybe you have 4 different clients that you're entering on behalf of. Remember, your client is that primary entrant. So that client must have entered into 4 different categories. Now, I understand it's you and your client, but we're thinking of it from the builder. So builder A had to have entered at least 4 categories along with you to be eligible for that Marketing Excellence Award. Same with builder B, builder C, no matter how many of them that you're doing. And again, you can enter into up to 3 per category, per builder, per membership. So if you have a client, I don't know, let's say there's Minto Homes. Okay, they're a big, if you're not familiar with them, they're a big builder in Ontario, and I believe they're active in several different cities, including Ottawa and Toronto. If they have a membership in Ottawa and a membership in Toronto, they can enter up to 3 times per category for each membership. So because they have 2 memberships, they could actually enter up to 6 times, as long as the homes, 3 in one, 3 in the other location. All right. How do you get recognized then if you're the marketing company? Because we recognize that you're doing, pretty much all the work. You're doing all the entering here. How do we recognize them? So for marketing categories, you can be listed as the partner. So you can go up there along with the builder. So it'll say, builder ABC with marketing company XYZ. And here's the project name. If the builder is not comfortable with that, or you're not comfortable with that, or for whatever reason, you can also be listed as a contributor. In that case, if you won, it would go to builder ABC, and instead of and marketing company, it would say with marketing company. Subtle difference, and your name would be there in both cases. Bottom line, make sure your clients are members of the association where the project is located. Definitely do that before you start all of the work. All right. So for those of you who are entering marketing awards, or anybody really who's submitting more than one award, we do have a new awards platform this year. So I know a lot of you have said you'd never entered before, so this will mean nothing to you. But for those of you who have entered with us before, we're using a new awards platform. So things are going to look a little bit different than you've gotten used to potentially over the last few years. But if you're entering more than one award, you've got a single login. You can check out one time with all of your entries. If you're a marketing company, let's say you're submitting entries on behalf of 2 different clients, you can put them all under your profile per se. And so that you don't have to re-enter that company information a whole bunch of times, we do have like this button that says autofill company details. It's a little bit misleading, and I think we're going to change the label on that because it's not an autofill really. The first time you have to enter the info, but then after that, it will autofill for you. So if you know that you're doing 6 entries for builder A, do this, enter that autofill, all the company details for builder A, start your entry, and then when go to another one pretty much right away, and it's going to autofill them. So kind of create the shell for them several times. Then I would switch to builder B, enter their info, and create those shells for builder B. That's my tip for anybody that's doing entries on behalf of different people or different companies, or even if you're a single builder, you're entering on behalf of your company, but if you've got multiple entries, you can just use that autofill so you don't have to keep filling in the company details every time. All right, checking, it looks like no added info in the chat here. So I'm gonna keep going. So I touched on all of that really fast, but all of the information can be found at chba.ca/housing awards. Just a reminder, our deadline is December 7th. So now that you know all the eligibility and kind of what your different categories are and everything, in order to get started, here are the really basic things that you need pretty much across the board. Definitely check individual categories for specifics once you're in there. Just create an entry and see what the form looks like. We also do have entry forms, which we'll talk about in a sec. But essentially, most important thing, in my opinion, you need professional images, or at least really, really good images. That's what the judges see. Judges are, this is not a local competition where the judges can walk around and look at the product. So they're relying on those photos. So make sure that you've got a bunch of professional images in there. You're going to need floor plans unless it's a marketing category, you don't need floor plans, but for pretty much all of the rest, you're going to need floor plans. For community development, you'll need a site plan. And those should be simple floor plans. So the type that you would give a customer, not your detailed drawings. The one that says living room 10 by 15. That's pretty much all we're looking for the judges. If you're a custom home builder, we recognize that you might not have those simple drawings. If you do, absolutely submit those. If you don't spend 5 hours taking your I don't know, whatever came out of AutoCAD or something and trying to make it more simple. Just submit what you've got. Again, most of the judges are builders, renovators, and developers. They do know how to read those plans. They just prefer to see the simple ones because that's all they're looking for the floor plan. If you're building a custom home, whether it's net zero or not, or you're doing a renovation, you do need a signed homeowner permission form. You will not be eligible if you don't have this. Why? Because we don't want to get sued by the homeowner saying, I did not give permission for my builder to enter this project. So we did collaborate with several HBAs across the country, and we do have this form that's basically a 3-level form. So your local level, provincial, and national. If you filled in a very similar form at your local level, just send it to us and we'll make sure it's got all the info on it that we need. Most of us kind of collaborated together on it, but I just want to make sure we've got all of our core information on there. So the name of the homeowner and everything will be on there. None of that information will be made public. It's just that we have done our due diligence to verify that the homeowner has given permission. Company information, that's a basic thing that you're going to need to provide. Your contact information as the lead person so that we have any questions with the entry, we know how to contact you. And then you're going to have to answer several questions about the project. So I just talked a little bit about that homeowner permission form. Just to note, if it's a custom home, but it actually was not built for a specific client, like if it's still in the builder's possession or it's your home even, that's okay. You do need to have that form in there, but it can actually just be blank and you can kind of write on it in the builder's possession so that we know that it's still yours, you are the homeowner. And again, we've just sort of checked off that box. All right. Somebody has a question about account. So when you go on to the online entry account, if you do it under your account, are you automatically the primary unless you fill that in? So I assume you're talking about the company. So when you create your own entrant account, it actually it's separate from the company information. So no, it doesn't automatically assume that. So if I go in and I jump in and enter my information, I'm going to put what company I work at, but we're not assuming that that is who the builder is or anything like that. So you will have a company contact information for the primary entrant separate. Someone said, if you're entering on behalf of a builder, is there a builder permission form? There is not, but you basically by entering, you have to essentially say that, yes, we do have the builder's permission to enter. So if the builder comes back to us and says, what the heck, I did not give my permission, we are just going to turn around and point the finger at you. So do your due diligence, be comfortable with the fact that your builder's entering, but no, we don't have a specific form that you need to fill in. We want to try and make it as easy for you as possible. This is a bit of an extensive process as it is, so we try and cut out steps whenever we can. Another question came in, are plans with renderings included okay? Yeah, I'd say so. If you have Adobe PDF Pro and you can easily knock off those pages, I would do that. But just remember that the actual photos that you're submitting, like they have to be real photos. So we're going to tell the judges, don't pay attention to the renderings because you've got the real photos over here. Just look at the floor plans. And it's just one more thing for judges to have to kind of scroll through. So if you can remove it, I would. They further elaborated, sometimes you'll get a render of a specific feature within the plans. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to disqualify if you include it. I would take it off. Judges are very, very busy. They have a lot to look at. And so if you start adding a bunch of extra stuff, they might get a little annoyed with your entry, to be honest. And you don't want that to happen. All right, tips. Did I skip a slide? No. Okay, tips. Here's some big ones. Okay, We do have word entry forms available so that you can work offline, you can work collaboratively. They're also a really great backup of your work. It's always nice to have your own copy of things. As I mentioned, we are using a new online platform this year. It's a platform that might be familiar to many of you because it is used by lots of locals across the country already. So we have full confidence that it's going to work no problem. But I personally always like to have a backup of something that I'm spending a lot of time on. So if you do want to use those word entry forms, they are available to you. Answer everything clearly, to the point. Do not repeat yourself. So again, think like these judges. They are going through a ton of different entries. They know the lingo already. Make it brief for them while still fully explaining what you've got. A lot of people will go into the marketing collateral and just copy and paste content into their entry. And that's totally allowed. Go ahead and do that. But I would say have a good look at it too. If it's kind of like overly flowery and really salesy, try and tighten it up a little bit. You're speaking to fellow builders and renovators. They want the facts. They want a really quick hit on what makes this home special. So don't use, like a ton of adjectives and all that kind of stuff. Um, and in terms of repeating yourself, there are word counts for all of the questions that are asked, just because some people will write a novel if you don't put them in there, but don't feel like you need to meet them. If you find yourself repeating yourself just to meet that word count, don't worry about it. The judges will be thankful that you're under the word count, if anything. So don't repeat yourself. When you go to upload your photos, you'll see that it automatically sort of labels them with whatever the file upload with, even if there's just metadata in there, which is kind of impressive actually. But anyway, you can rename those to whatever you'd like. So you don't have to, first of all. So you're short on time, don't worry about it. That is not a necessary step. But if you do have time and you want to label them, go for it. Maybe it's not clear that this is the primary bedroom, and so you put primary bedroom versus, children's bedroom or whatever. I will say I've seen some people make interesting use of this where they will sort of add little descriptors. For example, bright and airy living room. As long as it's short and snappy, I don't know if that impacts judges at all, but it's an added space where you can add things. Again, don't write a novel. You're looking for just like a little descriptor on there of what it is. For renovations, absolutely recommend labeling your before and after. So you will have a requirement to upload before photos, and it's not always clear what you're looking at for the before and after because sometimes rooms change functions, right? So you might use that as your photo upload as an opportunity to describe that a little bit. Like, kitchen viewed from living room versus, new dining room, formerly the kitchen, something like that. And then we recommend putting your exterior images first. It's the easiest thing for judges to recognize. And in our galleries, it'll be the first thing that shows up. So you can drag and drop the photos once you've uploaded them. You can batch upload them all together, and then you can drag and drop them around. All right, I'm just looking if there's any questions. All right, confirming if we are a supplier entering on behalf of a builder, that we would need to add ourselves to the contributors section, or are we auto-added because we're making the entry submission? Okay, great question. Nobody is auto-added to anything, regardless of whether you're the primary entrant, contributor, etc. So absolutely enter your company in the contributor section and put all your company information in there. Hope that answers that question. Do we need to label plans with the entry number or project name? Okay, great question. Plans should be as unlabeled as possible. So you're not going to know your entry number really, or the judges won't see it. So don't worry about putting that info anywhere. Your project name, it's going to be very clear to the judges whose it goes with. So no, don't spend extra time doing any of that. Now, what we did not talk about was trying to keep your entries as anonymous as possible. So for photos, absolutely no watermarking anywhere. We want them to be as anonymous as possible, and we use the photos a lot throughout the year. And frankly, watermarks are pretty ugly. So if we're using your photo down the road on social media, don't worry, we're going to be tagging your company. You know it's out there. You'll get the credit for it absolutely on social media, but don't watermark it. It's hard for the judges to see. And then your plans, same thing. We recommend trying to keep them unlabeled as possible. That said, not everybody has Adobe Pro, for example, to be able to take the logo off. So if it's on there, don't worry too much about it. It's not going to get you kicked out of the competition. However, again, as anonymous as possible would be great, especially because the odd judge does often go like, nah, they should have taken this off. Anyway, so try and keep things as anonymous as possible. Professional question. What about professional photography that has the building logo in the background? So I would say for any marketing category, that's fine. If it's so what we do see a lot, for example, is a picture of a living room and people have put the logo of the company, of the builder in the TV, like pretending it's the screen. Again, we're not gonna disqualify you, although we probably should. I will say judges really don't like it at all, because they don't want to feel like they're being biased in judging the entries either. So try and take out logos as much as you can. So yeah, she further qualified it's for a sales office. So don't worry about it for marketing companies. That's no problem. You're marketing. It's all good. I'm just going to do a really quick poll. I know we're at time, but I got something important to share with you guys. So how many of you have judged housing awards before? No? Yes, you've done it nationally, or yes, you've done it locally, provincially. If you've done all three, you can answer all three. Okay, I don't want to take up too much time. So most of you answered no. Uh, I would highly recommend taking the opportunity to judge. It is a benefit of membership. You will get a complete inside look of what that entire process looks like. So that when you go to create an entry, it's obviously too late for this year, but if you go to create an entry next year, you'll have that experience as a judge, and it will help you to make stronger entries going forward. You get to see lots of cool stuff that's happening around the country. You can, help it inspire some of your own work as well. So if you do have the time to volunteer for judging for any of the competitions, whether it's national or your local or provincial competition, definitely recommend you do, even just to get that perspective to make you a stronger entrant. So that being said, we do have our national call for judges out. Shameless plug. It'll be past the entry period, obviously, but if you're looking to kind of get a little bit of a leg up for next year, you are absolutely allowed to enter and judge. We will not assign you to any categories that you've entered in. So there's no conflict of interest there or anything like that. So the details are up there, and we'll be sharing more on social media and via email going forward. So we're just slightly over time. I hope I've answered everybody's questions. If you do have any more, please pop them into the chat. And again, as I said, if you do have any questions over the next few weeks as you're creating your entries, please don't hesitate to email us at housingawards@chba.ca. Amy is monitoring that all the time. And if she's not around, then I'm monitoring it. You may get a response from either one of us, depending on the question. I know some people really prefer the phone, but but a lot of times we have to look into something, and so getting the question like on the phone, we'd actually almost just have to give you a call back. So if you've got questions on stuff, send them in by email. You can even request a call back rather than an email back, but we're often doing a little bit of digging on our end, or even just processing and thinking about your question. So we'll reply to you as soon as we can afterwards. All right. I have a few extra minutes. If anybody wants to stay on, I can show you a little bit of a tour of the new site. I'll go in and create an entry and kind of show you everything if you would like. So if you do want to stay and do that, pop it into the question right now. Otherwise, I will assume you do not want to go, and I will end this webinar. So for those of you who did last this long, thank you so much. Good luck with your entries this year. If you've got any questions, like I said, let us know. Make sure you get those entries in nice and early. You can keep working on them right until the deadline. So even if you submit your payment and everything, they're still editable. So you can still be tweaking away. We tend to get most of our entries, like 70% of those 800 entries actually hit the submit button in the last hour, which is a little bit terrifying. So if you've got it ready, mostly ready beforehand, check out, make sure all of that works, make sure your credit card goes through and everything, so you're not at least dealing with last minute tech hurdles. And then you can keep tweaking right up until the deadline. All right, a few people have said, let's do it, and we will go online. So we'll do a quick online tour for everybody who wants to stay at this point. So I'm going to end those slides here. I'll just pull up the website and then I'll share my screen again. Give me 1 second here. Oh, apparently I'm still sharing my screen. Go. All right. So share that screen again. Okay, I think I'm sharing it. Let me know in the questions if I am not. So this is our main page. It's chba.ca/housing awards. It's going to redirect you to a new page. So don't worry about that. You're still in the right place. You see the logo. Here we go. All right, here's our homepage. You can scroll down if you want, but really what you're looking for here is this how to enter. I guarantee 95% of the questions you're going to ask us are included somewhere in these pages and probably explained better and faster than we can on the fly via email. So definitely recommend give these a quick read first. You've got your eligibility requirements broken down, common, tips and things like that. And then we've got our step-by-step guide for how to enter. So we do get emails of people saying, how do I start? We have a whole page right on here on how to start. So if you go back to this main page or linked in a few different places, I'm going to go back here. This big button right here, I'm going to hit enter now. All right, so if this is your first time signing on here, you're going to enter, this is your entrant details. I just used a fun Hotmail address here. You'll enter a password, your name, and you'll see they don't even have the company info on here. So those people who asked whether or not the company would default to who they are, nope, because we don't even ask for it here. We're just asking details on how we can contact you. So you're going to create an account. I did that a few weeks ago when I was testing things out. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in here. All right. Here we go. Oh, and we do have a quick question from somebody on what is the cost for entry. I believe we're at $245. You're really testing me. But in the fees and conditions page of the website, that's on there for sure. Okay, so this should be the dashboard when you first enter. And so you'll see you've got a few different things on here. You've got your entries, you've got, billing settings, etc. So if you were to have created a bunch of entries, you'll see them up here. You can see that I had done a test one before we opened entries and that I've got a test one in here right now that's still open. We've got a few quick links for you up here. If you didn't read those category descriptions, eligibility details, and everything like that, you can do that before you even start your entry. But otherwise, this is what it looks like. So first, you're going to pick a category. So let's say I'm going to do a production home under 1,800 square feet. I'm going to give it a title. So we do get questions on what should I actually name it. The key thing is don't put any identifying information if it's a custom home or a renovation. So if I was entering a custom category, don't call it like the Smith residence because we don't want people to know that it's the Smith's residence. Call it something fun instead, like, I don't know, the fancy chateau. It's a terrible name. Don't pick that. But you can pick whatever you like. Creative ones actually do seem to do well. And yes, the judges do see the entry title or the project name. It's also what is published everywhere. So, and the reason we publish all that is because some companies do enter more than one project per category, and there needs to be a way to differentiate between the two. So yes, judges will see the title. Everybody will see that title. So you'll enter a title here. I'm going to call it the Oh So Creative Test. You'll see I'm really creative over here. This is that autofill part I was talking about. So if you only have one entry, you can just go ahead and hit start. If you know you're going to be entering into a few different categories, I would recommend filling in these autofill details. It's not autofill because you have to fill them in yourself the first time, but then they'll carry over for every entry after that. You'll see down here, we've got the CHBA National Membership ID. That's to allow us to do a really quick check to make sure that your membership is valid. Most people are not going to know what their ID is, so you can click here and look that up, and it's going to bring you to CHBA's website. And then you can look for your company here. I will say that the search is a little bit fussy, so pick one or two keywords and put it in there and then hit find. You might have to, go a little bit by that. You can also search by province and HBA and see everything here. And then that first column, that's your ID. So that's that 6-digit number that you're going to want up there. I'm going to go back here. All right. So let's pretend that I filled all of that in. Then I'm going to hit start. And that essentially saves your entry. So the title that I entered before is up here. There's a little reminder here of kind of the breakdown that the judges will look at for that different criteria, just so you have a little bit more context as you draft your stuff. So all of the entries are broken down into categories, or sorry, sections. A question just came in. I'm distracted. Can we include the project name in the title? Yes, that's what it's for. So the title, entry title, project name, whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing. So if you're a production builder, usually it's the name of the model that they'll put in here. If you're a custom home, obviously the home doesn't have a name per se, so you can make up something fancy. But yes, that is the project name, entry title. We might add a little slash to that to make it more clear. All right, so as I said, it's broken down into sections. So first we start with the company's membership. So again, up here we've got some text to remind you, this is the main entrance. So this is the builder, the renovator, the developer. So if you're that marketing company and you're entering on their behalf, that's where you put their information, the builder's information. So you'll see you have to pick their HBA. Why? Because we then check to make sure that the location of the build is in that local HBA and that your member's there. You'd put the company name. This is where it would autofill if I'd filled that in on the first page. Same with your ID, etc. So these are all company information. Here we've got company contact information. So we already know the primary contact is you because you created the entry, but maybe you want, I don't know, the CEO to be alerted or somebody else. You can put their contact information in here as well. And you can actually add a few different names if you want. We do have this quick question about whether or not you use modular panelized or neither. The judges won't be available to see this. We're using it for internal purposes. And then you've got your eligibility criteria. This is like your checkbox. Yes, I read this. Yes, etc. Yes, it meets all of your requirements. You do have to check yes on these. I definitely recommend reading them. Location of the project, that's how we'll verify your entry. You have to make sure that you have permission to use all the photos. So again, that's one of those things. We're not going to get you to fill in 5,000 permission forms from your photographer and whoever else, but you will have to sign off saying that yes, legally you're allowed to use the photos. You can also credit your photographer, your architecture, your designer, if you'd like, as long as they're CHBA members, we'll put that up there as well. And then next we've got the project partner if you're adding one. Again, that's pretty rare. Here's your project contributors that you would add. So again, if you're adding, the designer, the cabinet maker, etc., you would add them in here. They can be a member in any local. Then we get into the actual meat of the individual entry. So you'll have, depending on the category, these questions are all going to be a little bit different. So make sure you pay attention. There's sort of like hint text at the bottom of each one of these that really gives more of an explanation of what we're getting at. So check those out if you've got any questions. Each one is going to have a project summary, and you'll see it's broken down into part 1 and part 2. The first stage of judging, they're going to see this project summary. And then in the second stage of judging, so once they narrow down the finalists, they're going to go into this detailed part 2 where they pick the winners from. So make sure that you are expanding on part 1 in your part 2 entries and not just repeating all of the same information, because the judges will see both. So you'll see for this particular category, there's a few questions. It tells you how many points they're worth. It gives you a word count in here for each one. And then you'll have your upload requirements, which again will be different from every different category. So your photos, it'll allow you to search right on your computer. We do have an ideal size for the photos, which is basically making it big enough that if we wanted to put it on the cover of our magazine, we could. That's why we've picked that size. And also so it displays really nicely for the judges. However, if you're a bit under or a bit over, don't feel that you're going to get disqualified or anything like that. We had a question come in. If you're a project partner, do you get a trophy or only the primary, or is there only one trophy? Both names are on it. Okay, great question. There's only one trophy. Both names will be on it if there's partners. However, you'll have an opportunity to order more trophies. So as a winner, you are automatically supplied for one. You can order more of them if you would like. You will have to pay for them, but you can order as many as you'd like. Here's where you would upload your floor plan or your site plan. And then you can see here, because I haven't filled in anything, it's basically flagging like, hey, you have to actually fill something in order to submit it. So that would be all you'd have to do. I know it's a lot of work, but that's all you'd have to do for this particular category. You'd hit save. It's not going to let me, it lets me save because you don't have to fill it all into save, but it's not going to let me actually check out because I haven't filled all of this in. But you can add it to your cart once you do fill everything in, and then you can go back and start another entry if you're submitting more than one. Payment is only by credit card. And once your entry is paid for, you are officially submitted. However, you can go back in and make tweaks to your entry right up until the deadline. So like I said, if you want to get that out of the way, it's 95% good. You're not sure if you're going to have time to go back and tweak or not. Get it in there so that you don't have that stress of checking out 5 seconds before the deadline. And as a note, we know that a lot of competitions will extend their deadline. We don't. It's a huge competition, and we're on really tight timelines in terms of turning things around and verifying them before judging. So our deadline is no joke. It is the deadline, unless we're experiencing massive technical difficulties on our end, not for you, not suddenly your internet crashed or whatever. We don't extend the deadline. So please keep that in mind. 6 p.m. Eastern Time, December 7th. Another question came in. If you are a designer, you're a contributor, and order a trophy later, can you get your name on it? I'm pretty sure we did decide to do that. Basically, we just check with the builder, like the main entrant, to make sure they're okay with it. I think that's what we determined we were doing. Cost of the entry is $245. Is that what you're talking about? Cost of the trophy. I don't have the costs right in front of me. They're not cheap. Like around $300, I think. Yeah. I've never actually made that public in advance, but we would send you a trophy order form and everything like that. They are very expensive. We definitely don't make any money on them. All right, so that is the tour there. Hopefully it works well for all of you. If you have any technical issues or any questions as you go, definitely flag those for us too. Like I said, it's a new program for us this year, and so I'm not expecting it to be absolutely perfect. So please help us out if you do see anything wonky or if something's not working properly, just reach out and we'll try and get it figured out. So with that, I will say goodbye to all of you. Thank you so much for joining today. And yeah, good luck with your awards.